At the turn of the 20th century, America stood at a crossroads. It was a nation bursting with industrial power, searching for its place beyond its own borders. And at the center of that transformation stood one man, restless, ambitious, and impossible to ignore. He charged into battle in Cuba, challenged the most powerful corporations at home, and believed America was destined to shape the world beyond its shores. This is the story of Theodore Roosevelt and how one president helped turn the United States into a global empire. We're talking about the 26th president, Theodore Roosevelt, and his role in the rise of the American empire. To understand Roosevelt, you have to understand the America he inherited. The late 19th century was the Gilded Age, a time of massive industrial growth, but also deep social inequality and a sense of unease. The frontier, that great symbol of American expansion and identity, had been declared closed. The nation was bursting at the seams, flexing its industrial muscles, and looking for a new stage to prove its greatness. Many influential figures, inspired by ideas like manifest destiny and social Darwinism, believed it was America's turn to join the great European powers in building a global empire. This was the world Theodore Roosevelt, or TR, stepped into. Born into a wealthy New York family, he was a sickly child who remade himself through sheer force of will into a rugged outdoorsman, a Harvard graduate, a historian, and a passionate public servant. He was a bundle of contradictions, an aristocrat who championed the common man, a hunter who created the national park system, and an intellectual who believed in the power of brute force. His big moment on the world stage came with the Spanish-American War in 1898. Frustrated with his desk job as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Roosevelt resigned to form a volunteer cavalry regiment known as the Rough Riders. Their famous charge up Kettle Hill, often misremembered as San Juan Hill, became legendary. The press turned TR into a national hero, the embodiment of American vigor and martial spirit. The war itself was short, a splendid little war, as one diplomat called it, but its consequences were enormous. In just a few months, the United States acquired a string of overseas territories: Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Cuba gained nominal independence, but remained under heavy American influence through the Platt Amendment, which gave the U.S. the right to intervene in its affairs. Suddenly, America was no longer just a continental nation, it was a colonial power with an empire stretching across the globe. After the assassination of President William McKinley in 1901, Vice President Roosevelt was thrust into the presidency. At 42, he was the youngest president in American history, and he brought his boundless energy and assertive worldview to the White House. His foreign policy was famously summed up by an old African proverb he liked to quote: "Speak softly and carry a big stick, you will go far." And that big stick was the newly modernized and expanded U.S. Navy. Roosevelt believed a powerful Navy was essential for projecting American power and protecting its growing overseas interests. He sent the Great White Fleet, a fleet of 16 new battleships painted a brilliant white, on a worldwide tour. It was a masterful piece of public relations and a clear message to the world, especially to rising powers like Japan and Germany: America has arrived. Nowhere was Roosevelt's big stick diplomacy more evident than in Latin America. He saw the Caribbean as America's backyard, and he was determined to keep European powers out. This led to the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. The original doctrine warned Europe to stay out of the Americas. Roosevelt's edition went further, declaring that the U.S. had the right to act as an international police power in the Western Hemisphere, intervening in countries that were unstable or couldn't pay their debts. This policy justified numerous U.S. interventions in Latin America for decades to come. But the crowning achievement of his foreign policy, in his own eyes, was the Panama Canal.
Roosevelt was obsessed with building a canal that would connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, a vital shortcut for trade and for the Navy. At the time, Panama was a province of Colombia. When the Colombian government rejected a treaty to build the canal, Roosevelt was furious. What happened next is a classic example of his big stick approach. The U.S. quietly supported and encouraged a Panamanian independence movement. When the revolution broke out, American warships were conveniently positioned to block Colombian troops from landing to crush the rebellion. Panama declared independence, and the new nation immediately signed a treaty granting the U.S. control of the Panama Zone. Roosevelt later boasted, "I took the canal zone and let Congress debate." Construction began, a monumental feat of engineering that would transform global trade. Roosevelt's influence wasn't just about military might. He was also a skilled diplomat. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1906 for mediating the end of the Russo-Japanese War. He saw America's role as not just a conqueror, but as a balancer of power, a nation that could shape global events to suit its interests and, in his view, promote stability. So, what is the legacy of Roosevelt's foreign policy? It's complicated. On one hand, he propelled the United States onto the world stage, turning it from a regional player into a global power. The Panama Canal, the powerful Navy, and America's increased international prestige are all part of his legacy. He acted with a confidence and a vision for American greatness that shaped the presidency for the 20th century. On the other hand, his actions created a legacy of resentment, particularly in Latin America, where the big stick often felt more like the boot of a bully. The acquisition of the Philippines led to a brutal and bloody war of suppression that cost hundreds of thousands of lives. The Roosevelt Corollary set a precedent for interventionism that many would later criticize as American imperialism. Theodore Roosevelt was a man of his time, embodying both its highest ideals and its most troubling contradictions. He was a progressive reformer at home, but an unapologetic imperialist abroad. He believed he was acting in America's best interest, securing its future and spreading what he saw as the benefits of civilization. Whether you see him as a visionary leader who built modern America or as an imperial president who launched a century of intervention, one thing is certain: the world we live in today was profoundly shaped by the energetic, ambitious, and controversial man who charged up that hill in Cuba. Thanks for watching. What do you think of TR's legacy? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into history, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. See you next time.